Fall Guys' player base on Steam alone has recently multiplied by over 5 in the past few days. But it obviously wasn't always like this at all. In fact, after the past few months or years at this point, Fall Guys had seemingly became irrelevant after one of the most explosive game launches in history. But the thing is, why was it so popular? What caused the game to end up dying? And most relevantly, how did it manage to seemingly redeem itself and launch back into popularity, at least for the time being? Well, of course, to answer these questions, we need to first go back to 2019 before Fall Guys was ever even a thing. More specifically, we need to look back at when E3 actually existed as an event midway through the year. If you weren't familiar, E3 is basically just a place where a bunch of different video games are announced every year. And in this 2019 event specifically, there were tons of cool games announced like Microsoft Flight Simulator, Fallout 76, and then there was this smaller, lesser known game called Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. This game was oriented at children, as you'd expect, with its colorful graphics and playful mechanics shown in its E3 trailer, so it made it clear that this game was what it exactly looked like. A young kid's game with simple and easy to understand mechanics. It's also worth mentioning that it was labeled as a battle royale game, which on one hand was a pretty redundant game idea that everyone from Fortnite to Tetris had already tried before at this point, but on the other hand, a lot of these battle royale games had child-based audiences, so naturally it was probably the right marketing decision. But it's not like at this point the game was really building up that much hype. If we were to look on Google Trends, for example, we could see quite literally no difference in the before and after of this announcement, which I guess can be expected. What was not expected, though, is what would happen next. Because after another trailer or two with similarly no results, Fall Guys would finally officially release for PlayStation 4 and Steam, where the game gained overnight success in the most literal term. The game debuted on Steam with over 150,000 players. The search results for the game were absolutely skyrocketing, and everybody almost immediately became obsessed with Fall Guys. And there's a few reasons for this. For one, Fall Guys being child-friendly also meant that it was easy to learn for all ages, no matter your gaming skill. This was unlike games like Fortnite, where you had to make sure you had the right building settings and you had all your keybinds just to be able to play the game. And also in those other games, in order to compete nowadays, you have to practice for hours and hours at a time. But for Fall Guys, it's pretty simple. You just picked it up and played it, which made almost everybody want to try it, gamers or not, especially since the concept was designed around being a parody of game shows, more specifically Wipeout, which in retrospect is such an amazing concept because unless you get really lucky or have ties to Mr. Beast, there's no way you're ever going to be on a real game show, and this replicated that in a fun and silly way. Another big reason for this game's blow up honestly was the 2020 pandemic, just because the multiplayer games were at high demand after everybody was forced away from their friends and other social interactions during quarantine, so it was something new that could get everybody together again for the first time in months at this point. I'd also like to give credit to a lot of the bigger streamers for giving this game a lot of popularity as well, because when this game got popular, naturally more and more people streamed it. Because when you bring all these massive streamers together with a combined viewer rate of like 500,000 and they all play Fall Guys together, there's no doubt that thousands of those people would end up wanting to play the game themselves. But all of these reasons, at least in my opinion, are no match for the biggest thing of all that made Fall Guys so popular, and that was PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus, if you didn't know, is a membership by PlayStation that basically allows you to pay monthly and get certain games for free from it. Now, for better or for worse, most people who had a PlayStation also had PlayStation Plus because you sort of needed it to play a lot of online games, among other things. So with that being said, when Fall Guys came out, while it was a $20 title for a lot of people, during its August launch, it also happened to be on PlayStation Plus for absolutely free. And if you thought 150,000 players on Steam was a lot at launch, Fall Guys literally became the most popular PlayStation Plus game of all time. And that just shows this game's immense popularity. Everybody was playing it for a couple weeks, they had fun together, everything was good, but then it sort of vanished. Everybody seemed to stop searching for this game, everybody stopped playing it on Steam, and eventually August passed and Fall Guys was no longer on PlayStation Plus for free. So with all these factors being said, the game began to decline in popularity a lot, like to an even higher rate than it rose up. But why is this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. In terms of the streamers that made the game initially very popular, they just moved on. They played it for a couple weeks, and like every other game, after a bit, they just moved on to something else. And it seems like that's also what most of the player base did. You want to know why? Because the game was realistically not replayable at all. There weren't that many maps to play. A lot of the games weren't very fun to play at all, like the multiplayer ones was just absolutely sucked. And overall, it really was just Mario Party, but with only the mini games. And while you could argue that mini games are honestly the best part of that game, try playing only mini games for an hour and see how much fun you're having. Not much, I'd assume. And that exact principle applies to Fall Guys as well, so naturally the game tanked down fast. It also didn't help that the hit game Among Us started to blow up around this time, and that game became so popular for very similar reasons to Fall Guys, like its multiplayer aspects and streamer popularity, so that didn't help Fall Guys' case at all. And also, Fall Guys hardly ever released any updates for this game, at least at first, so there really wasn't much incentive to play the game all that much, especially since after it initially got so big, the servers kept going down and hacking became a serious problem, so people just didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. Okay, blah blah blah, that's the downfall of Fall Guys. I've said it multiple times, tons of other YouTubers have said it multiple times. Who the hell cares? Why does this matter? Well, among all these little videos I made talking about Fall Guys, there's one little video I want to talk about, and that's this video here where I talked all about how I think Fall Guys could eventually revive itself. And if we watch that video, one of the things I said the game needed to do to revive itself was this. Fall Guys needs to allow more players to hop onto the game. And I think that has to start with the ports. I mean, as of right now, the quite clearly kid-targeted game is PlayStation exclusive along with a Steam release, literally leaving out the console that every child has on an airplane or in a car, the Nintendo Switch, and not to mention the Xbox, which some PlayStation users may argue has even more kids on it. But this is incredibly important for what happens in the coming moments for Fall Guys in the story, but there's one more clip I want to show you that is by far the most important. There is one method, one trick, one mechanic that Fall Guys has to do in order to stay relevant, which is making the game free to play. That's a good idea, 2021 sheep. And speaking of which, some Fall Guys official was watching my video or something, because guess what? Fall Guys as of last week has officially gone free to play, and it's released onto all platforms finally. The game is playable by any person, anytime, in any environment, and also it no longer costs anything to play the game at all. This new overhaul of an update did everything that I was hoping for with Fall Guys. And like I expected, it immediately shot all the way back up in popularity in tons of different ways that I can't even describe to you. For example, remember the Steam graph I showed you of the game shooting back up to 50,000 players? Well, when Fall Guys had released this huge overhaul of ports and it went free to play, the game was actually entirely removed from the Steam store and was instead put on the Epic Games Store. So that means that these 50,000 players are not just new random people who are gonna hop on the game just for one random playthrough, but instead it's people who've already bought the game and are instead giving it another chance. Another big thing that Fall Guys did during this overhaul that was amazing was a damn good advertising campaign. I mean, all of a sudden it seems like everybody's talking about Fall Guys once again, and this has been done through tons of different advertisements or even sponsorships on TikTok. Fall Guys has absolutely hit the mark on bringing the hype of this game back up to at least similar levels to where it was before. People are playing this game for the first time, and many more are hopping onto it to relive the experiences they once had. So yeah, now the game's doing good, and that's it, end of the video. Well, not exactly. Because while the game seems to be back in the limelight like how it has been before, the game, as mentioned, was never able to maintain any of that hype that they had garnered previously. So right now, I think is the most important time for Fall Guys ever. They've done what I think is everything that they could possibly do to bring this game back in terms of its availability and reach. And it seems to be working, as even the older players who already put this game down are finally picking it back up again. But the reason why this new surge in popularity matters so much is because Fall Guys, since its long hiatus, has changed so much. There's different queuing systems, different ways the cosmetics work, different reporting systems, different anti-cheat systems, different seasons, different maps, different everything. But while all that stuff is good and I've enjoyed playing it a lot, there's also a lot of problems with Fall Guys that never ended up getting fixed. For example, at the end of every single minigame, having to spectate everybody who hasn't finished, watch the animation where every loser gets pushed off the map, watch the animation where all the maps spin and randomize, go onto a loading screen for whatever map is picked, play an intro scene and a basic tutorial on how the game works, go onto a countdown for the next minigame, and then you finally get to play the game. So there's still a lot of problems with Fall Guys despite everything that has gone seemingly their way. But with all this being said, I guess that leaves us with just one more question. Has Fall Guys officially redeemed itself? Has it finally proved that it's not just a little fad game that'll end up being left in the dust after another week or so? Well, to find out these answers, I guess we won't know until the future. But in the meantime, let me know your thoughts on this new resurgence and how you think Fall Guys is if you're just now hopping back into it once again. Anyway, peace.